Hello and welcome into another episode of the Best in Paranormal Talk Radio, Beyond the Darkness. I'm Tim Dennison for Dave Schrader this week, a holiday week where we're bringing you some special encore presentations. Today is no exception. Today is a very special episode in that we're actually taking two separate episodes with the same guest. It's actually a follow-up episode to a previous episode. Now, the first part of today's episode has to do with the $1 Million Paranormal Challenge. You may be aware of it. It was put together by the Randi Foundation back when James Randi was alive. We came across the Randi Foundation and the $1 Million Challenge when Lou Gentile was alive, and he wanted to take the challenge. Of course, using EVP, he believed he had a gift for EVP where he could summon it on command, essentially. And went to take the test. Well, there was kind of some hemming and hawing and some delays, and one thing led to another. Lou Gentile got into an HVAC accident. He was an HVAC technician by trade. James Randi had a heart attack and bypass surgery. And we had the two of them on the show to kind of face off against each other because there had been delays on both sides. So the first part of today's show is kind of the explanation between the two as to what had been going down between the two and why they hadn't gotten together on this challenge. The second part of today's show is the follow-up to why the two of them never got together. It's kind of an interesting story. And then, of course, a follow-up interview with James Randi on his different beliefs in the paranormal and why there was a lack of belief, why he was such a cynic, not a skeptic, but a cynic, and why he was an atheist and why he came to those beliefs. That's all today on Beyond the Darkness. So let's kick it off with James Randi and Lou Gentile and the $1 Million Challenge, Paranormal Challenge, right now on Beyond the Darkness.
There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers. A dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends. A place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view. But when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me, as always, my co-host and producer, Tim Dennis. This evening, we've got a special show lined up for you, so I don't want to hesitate. I want to get right into it. We've got a great guest with us. The first guest for this evening is known as the Amazing Randi. James Randi is recognized internationally for all of his tireless and successful investigations of psychic, supernatural, and magical claims. He's been dealing with the subjects that border on both science and mythology. His organization, the James Randi Educational Foundation, offers a $1 million prize to anyone that can demonstrate a supernatural, paranormal, or occult ability or event. That prize can be referred to at the www.randi.org. It's an online newsletter of the JREF, which is updated weekly. We'd like to welcome Mr. Randi. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, sir.
A pleasure to be here.
First off, I want to say I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I know that you've, recently had some health issues, and we're hoping that you're having through a speedy recovery here and everything's going well for you.
Yes, it is, I must say. I've got another couple of months of rehabilitation to go through, but at the end of that, I expect to be back to my old performance.
That's excellent. Good to have you here with us, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. The reason I wanted to bring you on this evening, a couple of reasons, actually. The first one, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this challenge that you're putting out there, and find out a little bit about what kind of inspired you to start doing this. Is very much in the vein of Harry Houdini's war against the mediums that he took up back during his heyday, where he had actually, with the, I believe it was the American Scientific American.
Scientific American.
Sorry about that, right, that they put together a challenge for mediums, psychics, anybody that could actually come forward and do real paranormal or mythical things. They had made that challenge back then. What kind of inspired you to carry on this?
Well, for one thing, I saw a lot of people being injured by so-called psychics and prophets and whatnot who were taking advantage of their naivete and, in most cases, using trickery of one kind or another, psychological or physical, in order to convince these naive people that they had some sort of powers. I was rather taken with the fact that such a large percentage of people were unable to judge the difference between the paranormal, if there ever is such a thing. I don't know. I've never seen any all through my life, but that doesn't mean there isn't a paranormal force or ability out there someplace. The public, generally speaking, seem to be unable to tell the difference between something that would be real and something that wouldn't. They took the performance of myself as a magician, for example. Whenever I tried any mentalism on a television program or in person at a concert, whenever I did that, they'd come to me afterwards and say, "Well, the thing with the woman in the box, we know that's a trick, but were you able to tell the person in the audience the phone number? That wasn't a trick, now, of course." I'd say, "Yes, it was." No. I know the difference between a trick and the real thing." No, they don't. That's the problem.
Well, now I hear you, speaking about the paranormal and if it ever exists. Are you a skeptic?
Oh,
completely,
yes,
or a debunker? I mean, is there a
No,
line
I'm not a
between the two?
debunker. I never accept that term, because that would mean that I go into an investigation with the firm opinion that this isn't so, and I'm going to prove it to be not so. That's what a debunker does. He has to predetermine in his own mind whether this thing is fake or not. I always go into these things saying, well, I don't know. It looks like things I've seen before, but let's find out.
Well, you've been investigating this for how long now?
Well, I'm 77. I started when I was 17, so I'll let you do the subtraction.
Oh, man, I don't have enough fingers and toes to count all those. So you've been doing this for quite a few years, 60 years,
yes.
Following through. Has there ever been a time when you've thought to yourself, honestly, wow, this very well could be something of a paranormal nature? And then what about it turned you around or made you realize that it was something else?
I wish I could say that there was one that really puzzled me, but no, none of them ever puzzled me. Some of them have made me take a second look because I didn't see it the first time, but none of them have ever puzzled me. Now, mind you, there is Sophia Loren. She looks this good at this age. I mean, this is incredible. That's not oil of Olay. That's something supernatural.
That's paranormally hot.
Yes, that is.
Yes, I would say.
Well, you've got that, and but then I think what's happening is she somehow did a trade-off with the devil, and she still looks fantastic, but something horrible's happening to Michael Jackson as we speak.
Yes, indeed. I think you're right. I think you're right.
Now, with the investigations that you've done in the paranormal, I have questions. We have a few mediums and psychics that are friends of the show here that have made appearances on our show and can do, to my opinion, what are pretty impressive feats, because I understand cold readings, and just like you, I can probably fake my way through a reading and come off just as convincing as 99% of the psychics and mediums out there. Now, what's your theories and thoughts on the fact of, one of the guests that we have, who's a fantastic lady, her name is CJ Sellers, she comes on the show with us. She can actually, when she did a reading for me, she wasn't giving me generics and basics. She was able to come forward, give me specifics, give me nicknames that my family called me and that I called them. She was able to give specifics about things about the home that I grew up in, things that aren't generic, and it's not like, well, everybody had a tire swing. It's nothing like that. It's coming through with direct names, and this woman had no knowledge of me prior, and even if she did, there's no record anywhere of what my family called me and my nicknames.
Oh, question. Do you have a recording of it?
Yeah, actually, I believe I do have a recording of that one.
Well, now we've got something to work with.
Okay.
I often have people send me the recordings. I do an analysis of them, and it turns out with most people, they're rather poor judges of what they told the so-called medium or psychic and what was told to them. And we've got several cases with Sylvia Brown, for example, where we have the tapes, and the people said, oh, she told me about this, she told me about that. And it turns out when you listen to the tape, no, the victim of this scam actually told her.
Right.
It's not the other way around, but they seem to misremember it. After all, with Sylvia, they're paying something like $750 for a 20-minute reading over the telephone, so they can't very well throw the whole thing up and say, boy, was I a fool.
But I think she includes nude photographs with those readings.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I think she includes nude photographs with those readings.
Oh, yes, that's true, too. Yes, you knew.
That's a joke, Sylvia. We're just joking. No litigious here. So.
For entertainment purposes only, by the way.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, now, one thing I would like to do, if you'd have an open on that, we did do a recording with another medium that we've that really blew our socks off, and I'd love for you to hear that one. The one that I had with CJ is more on a personal nature. I'd like to keep that one to myself, but I do have another one with a gentleman by the name of Robert Baca, and I'd love for your opinion on it if Tim and I send out a copy of it to you, because I'm anal about making sure Tim didn't give away anything. When he did, I dismissed it. I said, dude, you can't count that because, you gave this away. You came up with the name, and then he followed suit. But the majority of the stuff that he came up with was unreal.
Well, and another situation is here. Have you ever looked yourself up on Google.com?
Yes.
Are you there?
I'm not, actually. Thankfully, there's
really?
a musician in Chicago by the same name, David Schrader, who appears everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the problem... the problem is with well-known people like Katie Couric, for example.
Right.
In one case was saying, it was impossible. This person could have this information. I found all of it on Google. And that person knew months in advance that he was going to be doing a reading for her. And he came up with all this material, and she had no idea how it could have been arrived at. But if I find it on Google, he can find it on Google, too.
Well, what was interesting with this is before we even launched our show. Mm-hmm. I had been contacting people to get guests, and I'd read an article about him in Fate magazine, and I was directed to him from the editor of Fate magazine. I gave him a call. I had Tim sitting next to me. He didn't even know I had a co-host. I said, "Hi, my name is Dave Schrader. I'd like to do the little interview with you and actually have you do a reading for me to see if you're legitimate. I don't want to put you on the air if you're, goofy." And he laughed about it and said, "That's fine." I said, "Oh, by the way, my co-host Tim is here." And Tim said hello, and then he launched into a reading for Tim, and it was everything he gave through for Tim. I know it gave me the impression he felt bad that nothing was coming through for me because he'd give me the generic, "Oh, by the way, your grandfather's coming through and he's proud of you, Dave. Now, Tim, back to you." And he would go into these unbelievable bits of information.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to hear a recording of it.
Oh, definitely.
That's the test of it.
Okay. All right, yeah, I'd be happy to send that off to you.
I'll tell you something which I've done which may interest you.
Sure.
In all of the biographical dictionaries, Who's Who and Who's Who in America, and the Cambridge Men of Achievement, all of these biographical dictionaries all around the world, there are so many of them. For every one of them, I have a different name for my mother's maiden name. I have a different one in each one of those encyclopedias or dictionaries, as you want to call them.
Okay.
So when a psychic comes up and says that my mother's maiden name was Paradis, for example, I say, "Oh, you read Who's Who."
Oh, okay.
And they look at you very strangely because that's the only place where that name appeared. It's never correct in any of the biographical dictionaries that I've been called by, and I use it as a sort of a hallmark of whether or not these people are going to simple sources like Google and like Who's Who.
Sure. Now, with your challenge that you make available, I mean, is there a quick explanation, if you can tell us, of exactly what is included in the challenge? What are you looking for, and under what circumstances?
No, I'm not looking for anything. What I'm doing is I'm putting a challenge out there. If you believe you have some sort of paranormal, psychic, or supernatural power of any kind, and you can demonstrate it, for an independent panel, not from myself, because I might be a little prejudiced, giving away $1 million.
Right.
It's not for me. It's for an independent panel that we will agree upon in advance. then come in, or
now when you say we will agree upon, when you say we will agree upon, does that mean the person that's participating and yourself?
That's right, yes.
Okay, so it's being judged by a jury of the peers in a sense. So the person that's doing
No, hold on now. There's no judging.
Okay.
We always design it in such a way that it's very obvious what the answer is. In other words, I can fly by flapping my arms. Fine, step to the window.
Okay.
You don't need a judge for that. You don't need someone to say, gee, did he really fly?
Somebody with a mop.
Fell straight down, didn't you think? That doesn't require an opinion or a verdict or anything. It's very obvious. But that's the way we design all of the tests. They agree to them in advance. If they say they can tell what's in a sealed envelope, okay, we give them 10 sealed envelopes, and we say, this is the target pool from which we chose the words that are in the envelope or whatever. And they have to do it, either do it or not do it. Now, no one of the hundreds of people we've tested over the years has ever passed the preliminary test, which is done to relatively minor odds. For $1 million, you have to do much better than that.
Sure.
But no one has ever passed the preliminary test yet. That doesn't prove there are no psychic powers.
Okay.
All it shows is that we haven't encountered them, if they exist at all.
Now, you said that's a preliminary test. Then once they pass the preliminary test, what are they required to do?
Then we have a formal test.
Okay.
And that would be... now, you see, what we try to do is we try to learn from the preliminary test. If they've got some method of trickery or some sort of subterfuge that we have to learn about, we would learn about it during the preliminary test, you see.
Okay. I do have a quick question from one of the listeners on here, and her name is Stacy from the board. She wants to know, from looking at your website, it seems as though your challenge is bringing out every wacko in the paranormal world. What claims have you found to be the most bizarre that have come forward to you so far?
Oh, well, that's the usual question, of course. Most of the healing claims, first of all, I'll tell you that a good 80% of the claims, the applications for the challenge, I should say, are made by dowsers. That's diviners, people
right.
with fork sticks or coat hanger wires or pendulums or whatever they care to use. That's the large majority, because it depends on the idiomotor reaction, which is described on the web page. You can look that up. And it's a very common delusion that people have. They think they can dowse, and yet when they're actually tested, it turns out that they can't do any better than chant. So 80% of the challenge, or the applications for the challenge, are for dowsing. But most of the rest of them are for healing, and that includes diagnosis as well. Now, the healing test is rather easy. If they say they can do a diagnosis, I say, can you do it from photographs? And most of them have agreed immediately. Oh, yes, of course, I can do it easily from a photograph. Okay, so I can send them 10 photographs, and I say, diagnosis, please. What they don't know is that some of those people are dead. And
okay.
No one has ever come up with the diagnosis of dead. Now, I'm not a medical person, but I can tell dead.
I don't think
right
dead
off.
is a disease, though, Randy. I think that's kind of a cheating way, don't you think?
Well, that's a final disease, I would say that.
Okay. So that's been the worst kind, are the healers and the dowsers, you think,
yeah.
are the ones that are the most bizarre?
Oh, yeah. The dowsers have the most bizarre theories for what they do. A lot of them get very angry and say, no, it's not paranormal. God gave me this power. Okay, I don't care who gave it to you. You can get it from the lady down the street. Whatever. Just do the thing and collect $1 million. Well, they come in with their funny little sticks and whatnot, and it turns out that they can't do any better than chance.
Now, what do you reflect on with this? The one thing that's always kind of baffled me is I hear the mediums and the psychics out there and the Sylvia Browns saying that, you know, you're just looking to screw them over and that you're not going to give it a fair chance and blah, blah, blah. They don't, you know, and more importantly, why do they need to step up and prove themselves to you?
Well, they don't have to.
Oh, right, I know that, but I'm just saying, I mean, what's your take on the fact of, I mean, it's obvious, you know, the take is the fact that they don't have these abilities that they claim to have. That's why they don't want to step up to it. I'm just curious as why so many of these purported psychics and people with these abilities that make such a huge stink about it. You know, truthfully, you know, if I disliked you as much as, you know, all these people claim to hate you and hate what you stand for, I'd be the first one to stand in line, kick your butt, and take your $1 million.
Absolutely. Well, Uri Geller has already said that he doesn't like me, so he won't take the $1 million. Wait a minute, Uri. Wouldn't you be the first person to step up and take it? You could get it within 20 minutes, I'm sure, if you really had the powers that you claim you have.
Right.
Sylvia Brown said, first of all, after she agreed on the Larry King live show many years ago, and I forget, about 6 years, maybe 8 years ago now, I've forgotten, but she agreed to take the test, and then she, for months and months went by, and we finally got a hold of her, and she said, I didn't know how to reach Randy. Hey, look me up on Google.
Right.
There are a couple of 100,000 references to me on Google. You can find me somehow. Or, wait a minute, how about a telephone directory? You're a psychic. Use tarot cards, crystal ball. Look into tea leaves or coffee grounds, anything. You should be able to find out how to contact me. Then she said after that, when that excuse didn't work, she said, well, he's a godless man, so I won't have anything to do with him. Wouldn't you want to take $1 million from a godless man?
Right, definitely. I'd take it from a God-filled man. I really don't care.
There you go. You don't care.
Well, let me ask you this now. With this mention now, I've heard from some of the other people and I've read some of the articles, and they all claim to say that, there's no follow-up, and like with the Sylvia Brown thing. Now, I know our second guest coming up here in about 10 minutes is a paranormal investigator. He's a radio talk show host. His name is Lou Gentile, and he's making an attempt to take the challenge with you as well.
That's right.
And he's going to be doing it with electronic voice phenomena. Mm-hmm. Now, after reading his website, he stated what I thought was a pretty clear challenge to you, or I shouldn't say challenge, but stating to you exactly how he wanted to do this and what he wanted to do, and it seemed to fit into the parameters pretty well.
Yes.
And I know after speaking with you, the information that was kind of relayed back to me is that the proposed protocol that Mr. Gentile wants to use is totally unacceptable. It's complicated and unwieldy. I'm curious, I don't know if you have a copy of his with you right now, but what about it stood out that was so complicated and unwieldy to you that I'm not seeing?
It went through so many phases, so many stages of complication that it would be very hard to find out how to get an answer out of this whole thing, a definitive answer. I want an answer like 1, 2, 3, or peaches, or something like that.
Okay.
I want something distinct, something plain, something understandable. And the second scenario that he presented, I found quite acceptable, that he would have either 20 or 100 or 40 or how many he wants, sealed envelopes, and we would give him the information. Now, this is what I volunteered. I would give him the target pool, that is, the 100 objects that were, or words that were represented inside the envelopes, and then we would choose envelopes at random and ask his extraterrestrial voices, or whatever the hell he thinks they are, to tell us what's sealed inside the envelope. Now, since he has the target pool there, he can't get bicycle instead of motorcycle because they're spelled differently and they look differently and
exactly.
they are different.
Okay.
So it's very definitive. He either gets it or he doesn't get it. That's why we have the target pool. If we just had, say to him, we have a number of words sealed inside an envelope here, if he got something like heaven and paradise, you might be confused between the two of them. We can't have that sort of thing. It's either the word that's in there or it's not.
Okay, and that's fair enough. Reading what you've had here proposed, it says, we have set 100 envelopes, each containing a different plainly printed word from a target pool. Each word denotes a common object. The envelopes are randomized. Mr. Gentile has been given the complete list of words in alphabetical order. Mr. Gentile will choose one envelope, ask his entity what's printed inside the envelope. After looking at the complete list of words, that envelope will be immediately opened and we will record whether the entity is or is not correct. They'll repeat that process 20 times. Mr. Gentile, assisted by anyone he chooses, will interpret what he says is an audio image from the entity. If the entity has correctly guessed the word inside the envelope 10 times, the test will be ruled a success. So out of 100 envelopes, if this entity can come up with 10 correct answers, you would consider that a success?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, according to Lou's website, as I'm looking on here, the email that he had posted to Jeff said, Jeff, this is Lou Gentile. I was surprised to find about you coming on and doing interviews again. He says that he has never gotten a response from either James, Kramer, or Jeff regarding the questions that you're waiting for. He has detailed in correspondence with JREF regarding the challenge. It's documented on his website. I even went there and printed this out. He has also said, as you stated in this new one, you can create a series of sealed number envelopes, say 200, containing the name of one common household item per envelope, and I will ask the entity what word is numbered on the envelope. The results will be determined by what I write down after review of the recording. Whatever would constitute a statistically significant number of hits, success, would constitute a success test, and anything else would be a failure. I am not a statistician, so I do not know what will constitute a significant success number. It sounds like you're saying out of 100, you'd like 10 correct answers, so I'm guessing out of 200, 20 answers. If you're doing something along those lines. What is the hang-up, and why hasn't the challenge been taken? If he's agreeing to it, because his agreement here looks exactly what you were asking him to do.
Yes. On February the 5th, I had a heart attack and a double bypass operation.
Sure.
As of that point, we put up on the webpage, and it's clearly visible there under the challenge, that it had been temporarily suspended. Now, in all fairness to Mr. Gentile, since he was going on your program for one thing, I rushed along with the 100 envelopes. We've got them in the safe right here at the James Randi Educational Foundation in Florida. They're all sealed up. They're all ready to go. I haven't heard anything from Lou Gentile. I wonder why. Maybe on this program we'll hear something.
Well, definitely. We're going to be talking to him in about 5 minutes here. We'll find out his thoughts on this. Now, can we follow up with both of you? I know he's made himself available to us. Follow up with you once you've had a chance to meet with him and review these and see what's going on. I'd love to hear what your take is on it once you've accomplished this challenge.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Okay. So you are open to it. There's no hesitation. You're just waiting to hear back from him now.
Yep.
Am I getting that correctly?
That's correct.
You're waiting to hear back from him, and what does he need to do, or how does he need to contact you in order to get this thing done?
Well, he knows how to contact me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's just
I'm
simply
very
going to
easily
the site.
contacted.
Well, I know I've got the number here to contact you through. Is it all right if I pass that on to him off the air so that I know for certain he has that phone number?
They're all listed in the telephone directory anyway, and they're on the website, and they're on my site very plainly, and they're all over Google as well.
I think I saw him written in a couple of truck bathroom stalls too. So, well, I don't want to keep you too long here. I know that you were gracious enough to give us a half an hour of your time this evening, Mr. Randi. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this. I'd like to keep the lines of communication open, find out what we can do. I invite you to stay tuned if you can. You can listen, and for people that are checking us out through Lou's website tonight, you can check out our show anytime on Sunday nights live from 10 to midnight Central Standard Time at www.darknessradio.com. We're going to go to a commercial break here in a minute, and Mr. Randi, I invite you to listen in for the rest of the show. You can listen in and hear what Lou has to say about it. We'll also make it available on the website tomorrow so that you can download it and listen to it at your leisure. We can also supply you with a compact disc version of the show so that there is no question about what he said, what you said, and hopefully we can see a resolve to this challenge within the next month or so.
Well, I won't be staying tuned in. My doctor has told me that 11:30 is my limit, and he may be knocking on the door any moment at all to check on me.
All right. Well, not a problem. You take care of yourself, sir. Heal well. We're all thinking about you and praying for you, and I wish you the best. And you've been a real gentleman. Thank you for joining us.
Don't pray for me, please, because prayer, as we just found out recently, doesn't seem to work very well. I have to thank the millions of people who didn't pray for me, and I recovered so nicely.
Well, then I'll tell you what. We won't pray for you either.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Heal very well, Mr. Randi.
Righto.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, and you're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio program. This evening, our guest was James Randi, the Amazing Randi, talking about his $1 million paranormal challenge. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have paranormal investigator, demonologist, and radio show host Lou Gentile on to talk to us about him taking up that challenge. You're listening to the Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Once you have seen Dave and Tim in the light, you'll understand why we must return to the darkness on the edge of town. Stay tuned. There is more to come. If it weren't for ghosts and aliens, these guys wouldn't be getting any action at all.
Yeah, baby! I threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town with Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis.
Good evening and welcome back to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis, my co-host and producer. As you just tuned in, you missed our first interview with the Amazing Randi, James Randi, who's a magician and skeptic and is out there trying to disprove, if you will, and not disprove, but he's trying to find proof of the paranormal. On the line with us, we have paranormal investigator, demonologist, and the host of his own radio show every week. It's a paranormal radio show. It's the Lou Gentile Show. And Lou, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Doing great. I appreciate you coming on the show and following up James Randi and talking to us here about your chance that you're taking here of taking the $1 million challenge that he's put out there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Not a problem. Now, you made this available in January, is that correct? January 9th, I believe it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe January 9th is when I announced that within 2 weeks I would be taking the challenge, and did some radio shows with Randy, and did exactly like I said, and 2 weeks later officially put in my application for the $1 million challenge.
Right. A hard copy, I believe, was received by the James Randi Educational Foundation on January 20th. Now, again, for people just tuning in, if you have an interest in finding out more about what this paranormal challenge is, you can go to James Randi's website. You can do that at Randi, RANDI.org. You can go there. It's all laid out for you. Now, let's talk a little bit, Mr. Gentile. You're making the attempt, and this is the first attempt, if I'm correct in remembering this. This is the first attempt of going forward with electronic voice phenomena.
Yeah, it took me a while. I was getting it for years beforehand, and it took my listeners to say, hey, maybe you should go ahead and try out for this $1 million paranormal challenge. Mm-hmm. So I thought about it and submitted my actually put a press release out first saying that I was going to do it. And in the very beginning, when I started doing interviews with Randy, he was coming along with the normal skeptical mumbo jumbo that he does with everybody. And then we moved along to me actually officially putting in the challenge. And the first thing that they did was they put all misspellings up on their forum of the challenge that I had, which was a legal document, spell-checked and grammatically correct and everything else. And they started with that. I got a message in my email from Kramer. And then we started to very slowly correspond, Kramer and myself. And Kramer was like the head of their paranormal claims department. And slowly but surely, I started finding out that the responses were very, 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 very pleasant and very fine. And I thought, okay, this might go along pretty good, and everything might actually turn out all right with this. Then I go to find out from my listeners that Kramer had quit his job because Randy believes that everybody should be concerned about Randy and everybody should read up on Randy and visit his website. And where we're at today is basically a very, over the last 90 days, just very bland 3, 4, 5-word replies from emails, and it's all documented up on that website. I might have gotten like maybe 5 responses from these people, and 3 of them were actually when Kramer had left. Okay. I think that these guys treat the people in the paranormal community like we're a bunch of quacks, which, granted, there are about 90-95% of them that put their claims up there that they act like they're quacks because they just don't follow the rules and come up with all kinds of goofy things. But
well, now, in all fairness, though, with James Randi, with having the heart surgery and the problems, you understand the delay with that, correct?
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
But it went on his website, and this is correct with people that go and they find out that they need to have heart surgery.
Right.
Nobody knew if this was a sudden thing or if he was scheduled for it. The information in the very beginning, before, whatever it was, before February, was very bland about him going in. And as soon as I put my claim in, I think a week or 2 later on his website, he claimed that he was going in for open heart surgery. Nobody said that he had a heart attack at TAM, nothing like that.
Okay.
It just seems to me very clear at this particular stage of the game, they think that everybody's a wackadoo inside of this field. They treat us like garbage. They do not contact, as he just told you, his whole little thing, his whole little response and everything. Here's something that I have given the guy every piece of contact information for me: cell phone, home phone, email address, primary email address. He didn't send that to the normal primary email address. He went on the site and he went on to the Contact Us place and it sent it to my email, which goes to a different email address. It doesn't go to my main one. He knows how to get in contact with me. He's not doing it. He treats these people, including me, as though we're beneath him, as though we have to bow down to him. And as far as what he was saying earlier about him being a skeptic, no. I think he's a skeptic and a debunker at the same time. As bizarre as that may sound, because here's a man that is talking about, we just haven't seen it yet. But guess what? The bottom line is that he makes these little sly remarks. Oh, they're little sticks, and they're little this, and they're little that. And anybody who's seriously involved in the paranormal, whether it's dowsing or psychic abilities or anything like that, some of these people take it very, very seriously. And yet James, finds it a big joke, and I guess he thinks that we're all supposed to go to his website and and jump through hoops for them for this $1 million, which technically, I honestly don't think that we should have to jump through as many hoops as this guy wants for $1 million. Let's face it. $1 million bucks, $1 million bucks, but still.
Now, the one thing, though, to keep in mind, people that are in certain professions, you've got doctors, paramedics, policemen, they get jaded after a long time of seeing carnage and violence, and it becomes almost jokeable to them. They kind of kid around about it. Now, this guy's been doing this type of investigating for over 60 years. Isn't it safe to say that maybe the reason he kind of laughs is because after 60 years of, as you mentioned, 90 to 95% of people out there that try to take the challenge, that don't want to follow the rules, don't want to listen, and when they do come in, they make complete asses of themselves. Don't you think, though, that at that point, he kind of has earned the right to kind of laugh about it because there's been so many miserable failures and so many people claiming that they have these abilities that nobody can stand up and do it.
Do I have the right, after doing my radio show after 7 years, to call everybody a wacko?
I'm sure it works good for Howard Stern.
Well, but
I understand your position.
I'd have no guess if I was like that, even though I look for the truth in what these people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Still have to give people a certain amount of respect.
Sure.
It's like applying for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Certain amount of respect, and you have to have some kind of a protocol in which you will have people notified. They notify people on their website. They don't notify people via email. I never got an email to the email addresses that I submitted in my challenge.
Okay.
I get an email from this guy. I didn't know anybody can put in any fake email address they want on my website.
Okay.
And, it took me to make that claim for him to finally stand up and going on your show and being able to actually say, oh, well, we're going to take this guy's trust because we have sealed envelopes. Well, that's all fine and dandy. You want to have these sealed envelopes. But how about this? How about I get a third party that's involved that can verify that these words aren't like, fructolativo or something like that, something outlandish, because this guy is noted for doing goofy things like this.
Right, but according to what I'm reading from his release and what he's requesting is, he's going to hand you an envelope, you're going to ask the spirit or the entity that's there with you what this word says. He's going to say automobile. You're going to then tear open the envelope and pour it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if the word is...
Here's the thing. Where is this? I haven't even gotten a copy of it.
Well, I've got a copy. I can make sure to get a copy of it sent over to you.
I would love it because this is what I'm talking about.
Sure.
They do not send anything to their claimants.
Okay. Well, and again, I understand your situation of worrying because you say anybody could fake an email address and send it in. Personally, I'd be happy to even conference both of you in so I know that you're getting the call. Then you don't have to make the call. He doesn't have to make the call. I'll make the call and bring you both together so we can get this challenge done.
And don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that when they go to my personal email address that it can be fake. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that on my website, on the contact form, it has where you have to manually put in your website ad or your email address and then, submit it. So I have, all kinds of people that write goofy things in that, and half of them are fake.
Well, the reason, and when I say that, when I'm offering to bring you guys together, it's not as a challenge to either one of you. It's the fact that I'm a skeptical believer. I still don't know what I believe out there, but I've seen amazing things. EVPs, I've always hated them. To me, they always look fake. They always come off BS. I'll tell you, the first time I ever saw somebody pull an EVP that impressed me was you.
Well,
I went to the Penn State conference. We got to do the ghost hunt with you. I stood a foot away from you as you collected EVPs, and you played them back immediately. There was no sleight of hand. You weren't plugging in other sounds, and I heard clear voices. That, to me, was impressive. That's why I'd like to get this thing done, get you a chance at it.
And that's all fine and dandy, but, as usual, what Randy is asking, it's not that there's a voice that's talking. Now it has to be that, these things can see through boxes. I could understand that, I went ahead and I put that out there for him. Never got a response until tonight. It's been, almost 3 weeks since I put that out there to him.
Okay. But you agreed to that. That's something that you said that you're willing to do. You have that posted up on your site.
I did agree to that. I did agree, and I made it easy for him, okay? And it has worked in the testing that I've done. As a matter of fact, this weekend, I've actually even proved to a reporter that they can actually see us.
Great.
They can physically see us. And this is a reporter from a major Philadelphia newspaper that's doing a front page article on me.
Sure.
Now, the thing is that this guy's now claiming that it has to be what? I mean, from what I heard, it sounded like they had 20 envelopes, and I had to get half of them right?
No. What it said, and I've got the exact protocol here. Okay. It says, we have a set of 100 envelopes, each containing a different plainly printed word from a target pool. Okay. Each word denotes a common object. The envelopes are randomized, Mr. Gentile has been given the complete list of words in alphabetical order.
Okay.
Mr. Gentile will choose one envelope and will ask his entity what's printed inside the envelope after looking at the complete list of words.
Okay.
That envelope will be immediately opened, and we will record whether the entity is correct or not correct.
Okay.
We will repeat this process 20 times. Mr. Gentile, assisted by anyone he chooses, will interpret what he says as an audio image from the entity. If the entity has correctly guessed the word inside the envelope 10 times, the test will be ruled a success.
Okay.
So basically, and that's what I asked him again on the show this evening, basically what he's telling you is that out of 100 envelopes, you just have to get 10 right.
Right. And look, I agree. I understand that the guy's sick. He's going through, godforsaken bypass surgery. But,
Right.
It's just, if this was the table's turn here, that he'd be having a time clock up on his site and everything else. The same thing that he did to Sylvia Brown. Same exact thing. I know how these people operate and know how they work. If he wants to do this, I have no problem in doing that.
Okay.
And what I'm claiming, even with the sealed envelopes, it's a double-blind test for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go wrong with that.
Right.
And I agree. I sat back and thought about it, and I said to myself, well, how is this guy going to be able to say he heard a word? I mean, if something clearly says, his name or another name, he could just very well say, no, I didn't hear anything.
Right. Well, he didn't say that. He's saying that you will, after you open up the envelope, you'll give him the word. You'll tell him what the word is. So it's up to you and whoever you want, if you have somebody else there to help determine what that word is.
Right.
But it can't be, if the word is bicycle, it can't be, your answer can't be motorcycle. It's got to be an exact match. Sure. In order to take this challenge. To me, that sounds pretty fair, as long as you're hitting the word on there and you're getting it, and he's allowing it up to your subjective nature for you to be able to determine exactly what the word says. But then there's no hedging. I can understand that, and I hope, as a rational man, you can as well, that if you think it's saying bicycle and you say, I believe the word is coming through bicycle, and then you open it up, it says motorcycle, there's no going back and going, oh, no, maybe he did say motorcycle.
Right.
Because, see, I could see that then, and from a skeptical point of view, that would look...
Completely understand.
Pretty fake.
Completely.
Okay. So doing that and going forward. Now, first of all, I have a great question from one of the listeners here. She'd emailed in. Her name is Stacy, and she says, you have an unusual success rate when obtaining EVPs. What do you feel is the key? Is it your attitude? Is it the phrasing? Or is it the equipment?
That's still unknown at this point. A lot of speculation is because I'm involved with the work that I'm involved with, maybe because I take this field very seriously. I don't know. It could be a slew of all the above. I just have no idea why.
Okay. Now, one question I have for you, too, from listening to it, some of the other EVPs that you played for us while we were there that weekend, a lot of them come out this real creepy, almost demonic growling noise. Mm-hmm. And then the voice sounded very similar to the exact same voices we heard when we were doing the investigation together. And granted, for everybody that wasn't there at the Penn State conference this year, Lou was nice enough to have people go out in a group of about 20. We got to go on a ghost hunt with him to 2 known haunted spots on campus. And in the basement of the botany building, I believe it was, we were picking up crazy EVPs, and the lights were lighting up. You had a voice-activated recorder, and you could physically see the light up while it was speaking, and then we could play it back. What I was curious about is, as the night kind of progressed, and it was, everybody was getting tired, that's when we started getting the answers, and they were very clear, they were very gruff, but they sounded exactly like the other voices. Do you feel that maybe you just have one spirit with you, or a guide with you, and that's who's talking to you all the time on these tapes?
I wouldn't say that, because it has been proven when I've been out in many different locations that these things change, like fingerprints, location. There are some times where they sound a little bit alike, but give you an example, a place like Gettysburg will give me different EVPs than going to a place 50 miles away at somebody's house.
Sure.
It's a little bit different. Sometimes, is it possible that there could be a spirit that's following me around that's doing this? It's very well possible. But, the point is that we're not trying to say that we have one entity or multiple entities. We're just trying to prove here that there is something that is out there that is answering questions and that can see us.
And it is intelligent.
That is intelligent.
Okay.
Now, what that is, I'm not concerned with at this particular point, because science wouldn't be concerned with it either.
Right.
You have to first establish that communication can be made. Once that communication is made, then we can go ahead after the challenge is done, whatever the outcome may happen to be, and hopefully it'll be that, I'll get the $1 million. But after that, we'll find out maybe, where are these things from, and more research will go into exactly where these entities are from, the extent of their knowledge, and just look at it in a different way. Look at EVPs the way that most people aren't looking at them today. Because let's face it, when people get EVPs, they're communicating with something that's invisible.
Right.
That's the whole thing, and that is the most amazing thing that is in our history of the world right now, to communicate with things that are invisible, that can see us.
Well, the government themselves has billion-dollar projects like the SETI program, where they're trying to hear transmissions from all over the galaxy and wherever it may be coming from. Why do you think it is that they would spend billions of dollars and government time to investigate those, but scoff at the idea of an EVP?
Because science would say that they're looking for physical evidence of something in outer space. Let's face it, there's an infinite possibility.
Right, but a sound wave coming back is not physical evidence. It's no more physical evidence than, you're still just making an assumption that means that there's something out there.
They're looking for a transmission. A transmission would be a very physical piece of evidence for them that there is life out there.
Well, isn't a transmission on your recorder of a voice responding to the questions you directly ask a transmission? Wouldn't that be considered physical evidence as well?
It would.
Okay.
It would, but I'm not using scientific. I'm not using the, let's say, the different frequency scanners to scan the physical universe.
Okay.
Specific areas where, let's say, we have, a galaxy where we're not like pointing. I'm not pointing my recorder at a galaxy and saying, okay, is there anybody there? I'm going anywhere at any time, inside my car, in haunted locations, not inside the haunted locations, and just asking questions. I'm not targeting it at the car interior and saying, is there anything inside of the car interior in this dimension? I'm just asking questions. That's why I'm saying once it's done, and once we have went ahead and established that there is communication, then we find out where it's coming from.
All right. Well, now, I've got the email from James Randi in the group, the protocol that I just read to you, and it even lists the 100 words. I'll be happy to forward that on to you directly after the show.
Sure.
Make sure that you've got a copy of it for yourself so that we can go forward. What's the next step for you then?
Well, the next step is, Randy is, once I accept the challenge, whatever he wants to do. Apparently he's got some time to recover, so that's all on hold until he can...
Well, according to what it sounded like to me was he's pushing this quicker. He was going to make it wait for a while, but because he knew you were coming on the show and he was coming on the show, they've already got the 100 words. They've already got the 100 envelopes. It's sitting in a safe in Florida right now waiting for you to take the challenge. Once I send this over to you, are you going to make a call to Randy to try to get this thing up?
Yeah, within 2 weeks I will make a decision what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I want to read it, go over it with Kevin Mears, who's assisting me with this. It's not a spontaneous process. I'm not just going to be, like everybody else and go, yeah, I'll take it right now. I want to make sure that I'm not going to get screwed over. I want to read it. I want to see it. I will make some phone calls. I will talk with some people, and more than likely I will accept it. If it's what I had told him in that email, I have no problem with that. But I want to make sure that I'm covered as well, so that this is looked at as scientific and as logic as possible without either of us looking like idiots.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Gentile is
to make him look like an idiot.
Right. What measures, if any, that you can tell us are you going to take to try and protect yourself against maybe trickery or some sort of tomfoolery or skullduggery from the Amazing Randi? Is there something that you could share with us that you can document this experience, or will he let you document this experience so that you have your objective side as well to the whole argument?
What do you mean exactly?
Well, Tim, I think they're going to, it's pretty objective. There's a box with 100 envelopes. He's going to draw them out. He's going to hold the envelope and ask the spirit what the word is on that card, and then he's going to play back the recorder, see what the word is, tear open the envelope, pull out the card, and if the word matches what's inside that envelope, it's a...
Right, but I'm saying that, okay, even between two parties, there's room for an argument as to what one sees and one doesn't see. Is this going to be independently videotaped or...
Well, yeah. I want to document the whole process. you can't tell me that I'm not going to be able to take a video camera and document everything that's going on.
I don't think he's going to have a problem with that. I think he wants his butt covered too, so that you're not claiming that something's not happening as well.
Why not? I mean, why not have a security specialist that's not on my side or his side? Watch them do whatever they have to do and seal these envelopes up and put them in. Okay. I'd have to make sure that these envelopes are not rigged or tricked in any way.
How could that be? If he puts the 100 envelopes in front of you and you pick one up and ask a question, how can it be rigged or tricked?
That's the logical question, but I'm sure that there's a way to do anything.
Okay. I'm not sure I follow you on that. And from what I just read you with what you were willing to accept and reading to you exactly what he just said he was willing to accept, which is identical things, you wanted to do 200, he's willing to even do it less and do 100 of them, and all you have to do is get 10% of them correct. What would be why a 2-week wait period? It sounds like you've been chomping at the bit to get this thing going, and now he's ready for you, and I'm just curious, what would be the 2-week wait period for?
Because I want to wait and I have to make phone calls and find out everything that people's suggestions, what people may be looking out for. I have to talk to my people. I mean, when I was trying to find out what was going on and I was waiting 90 days, I waited very patiently. What's 2 weeks?
No, well, that's fine. I'm just curious, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one out there that's listening to this that's kind of scratching his head on that deal, because you have wanted to do it, and if these things are mashing up pretty quickly to being exactly what you're both agreeing upon, I would think 2 weeks, well, let's just get it done tomorrow kind of deal.
Well, I mean, look, here I'm finding out tonight that this guy has sent me something which I've never gotten.
Okay.
Doesn't that make you go, what's going on here?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. I need 2 weeks.
Okay, that's fine by me. Like I said, I was just curious if there was a specific reason, if there was something that was going on. I mean, because their side of it is that every time they claim that they're responding to you ready to do this, you kind of scramble off and then don't respond, and then your response to them is, I haven't heard from them. And then I'm just worried that it's going to solidify their side of the argument that you're running scared from them.
I'm not running scared from them. It's documented on my website. I mean, my server can be logged of what emails came in from where. I mean, it's my server. I have the logs of those things. Sure.
But unfortunately, I don't have access to see those things, to know that for a fact. And it could just... Right.
Not that I'm jetting off.
Sure.
Now, all of a sudden, after 107 days, this guy's going to all of a sudden just say, oh, yeah, we're ready to go. Here we go. Come on, hurry up and let's do it. Just exactly like the media does. Mm-hmm. Now, if the guy submitted everything the way and even got in contact with me, this wouldn't be the situation right now. But I think 2 weeks isn't anything to wait for.
Nope, that's fine. Like I said, I was just curious if there was something in specific about it. Well, when, I'd love to have you back on the show. We're wrapping up here in a few seconds. I'd love to have you back in the show to talk about your experiences with other things. You had a great presentation at Penn State. You had some fantastic EVP evidence and some stuff I'd love to chat with you about. I'd also like to keep in touch with you to find out where you're at with this so that we can keep our listeners tuned. And everybody that is listening, if you want updates, you can check both Lou's site at Lou Gentile. That's LouGentile.com. You can listen to Lou's show each week, or each night of the week, Monday through Friday, and you can also check there for all the updates on what's going on with him taking on this event. You can also check out Randy's side of things at Randi, RANDI.com. But we'd love to have you back on here in the future with us, Lou, and talk some more about it and find out where you're at in the process. Mm-hmm. Okay? Is that good?
It's not a problem. Did he post this up on his website yet?
I don't know if it's officially posted up on there. I just know he shot me the email because I wanted to know specifically, as you heard me at the beginning, he said the proposed protocol from you was unacceptable, complicated, and unwieldy. I wanted to know what about it was and what would he propose. So he sent it to me and said that this is what he was proposing, and he had sent off to you with the list of words. So I've got it. I'll send it to you tonight. As soon as we get off the show at midnight Central Time here, I'll email that email directly over to you, and you can review that as well.
All right, Dave.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Gentile. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Darkness on the Edge of Town radio show at www.darknessradio.com.
Beyond the darkness.
Okay, so the two have gotten on the show. They've given their sides of the story as to why they can't get together. Now, did they get together? And Dave actually had a little bit of a, let's say, confrontation with Lou Gentile. We'll hear a little bit about that now. And boy, is it an interesting story, and gets even more interesting here on the second half of Beyond the Darkness.
The darkness on the edge of town.
Good evening and welcome to the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me, sitting across the boards, my producer and good friend, Mr. Tim Dennis. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Tim, we've got a great show tonight.
Yeah, we do.
We have the return of a gentleman we had 2 years ago. Can you believe it's already been 2 years?
Yeah.
We had him back in May 7th of 2006. We're bringing him on for a little bit of an update. And for those of you that missed the show, go check it out in our archives. May 7th, 2006, we had the Amazing Randi and Lou Gentile on our show talking about a challenge that Lou Gentile was taunting Randy with for quite a while about his EVPs, claiming that the Amazing Randi was coming up with excuses not to take the challenge. And also Lou Gentile even went to the extent of trying to convince people that the Amazing Randi went in for quadruple bypass surgery just to avoid having to pay Lou Gentile $1 million. And when I talked to the Amazing Randi, he was very generous with his time, gave us time that evening to talk. And he said, Dave, this is how it's going to go down. He said, this guy, I'm going to give him the time. I'm going to tell him we'll do this. I'll submit to whatever you're asking us to do. And he's going to backpedal. And I said, I don't think so, Mr. Randi. This guy's serious. So now let's bring him on, as I am about to eat humble pie and tell the Amazing Randi, sir, you were correct. Mr. Gentile was kind of a goof, huh?
Well, I have an ample supply of humble pie here.
Yes, I'll take a bite of that.
Thank you some if you wish.
No, I thought what was really funny, I talked to Lou Gentile and had been in his presence to see him collect EVPs and was kind of impressed by his ability or availability, I should say, to get that kind of phenomena to happen around him. And when he was saying that, he had wanted to do this challenge with you for so long and you were making yourself unavailable, and hearing all these horror stories about what a terrorist the Amazing Randi is, and he'll set you up just to knock you down. And you were so kind and considered talking to us on the phone prior to the show. And I will admit, fully astounded that things went the way they went with Mr. Gentile. Unfortunately, in his part, he suffered a massive accident where he fell from a high area and hurt himself, so he never followed up on the challenge from what I've been told. Unless, of course, if we want to buy into conspiracy theories, if you went out of your way to have a quadruple bypass surgery just to avoid him, perhaps he threw himself off of a high area to damage his head so that way he wouldn't have to actually follow through on the challenge.
Well, there are numerous possibilities here. I hesitate to wonder about all of them, but he was beating around the bush well before any accident happened. He was not even corresponding with me at a certain time, there for quite a period of time. And while he was not corresponding with me, he was telling people that I had backed out. I have never backed out of any confrontation of this kind, and I've been doing this for 20 years.
I'm with you. Now, for people that are just tuning in, our guest is the Amazing Randi. James Randi is a magician. He's a world-renowned paranormal skeptic. That's why we wanted him on the show. I know that we delve into the realm of the paranormal and speculation of all these fantastic stories, but from time to time we like to take a reality check. And I wanted to talk to you today, Mr. Randi, about the fact for the last 3-4 years, it seems like the top has been torn back off of the paranormal Pandora's box, if you will, with the advent of all the different TV shows on and all of these things going on. Why do you think that now, again, kind of like in the 1800s and early 1900s, there seemed to be such a resurgence of spirituality and people seeking these answers? Why do you think it's on a rebound again now?
I don't know that it's on a rebound, really. Just the fact that it's moved to television to a certain extent, and I understand that because TV producers are hungry. They don't have ideas, and ideas are hard to come by. So when they see something like NBC going along with an Uri Geller show where he's looking for a successor, this is like Rasputin looking for a successor.
Right.
Can you be more evil than I am? If so, you can step right up and take a chance here and get into the competition. No, I don't know that this perceived increase in interest really is legitimate at all. I think there's always been a certain degree of woo-woo out there, and it's very widely accepted and promoted and encouraged by the TV networks because they get a few good specials out of it. The thing that Geller did for NBC, this phenomenon thing, was a phenomenon, all right. It was the most lackluster program. It didn't have any entertainment value in it whatsoever. And Geller just sat there week after week saying that his mind was blowing. Well, he has a very easily blowable mind. Apparently, it has very poor fuses in it because he was constantly mind-blowing. And the stuff that people were doing on the program was not mind-blowing. This is stuff that's done at Sunday school picnics. I don't understand why he thought that anyone would believe that he really couldn't solve these simple tricks. These are tricks from the back of cornflake boxes.
Well, no, I'm just curious, Mr. Randi, if people, I mean, we know that just about everything and anything can be recreated now with science, with technology, with, magic tricks, sleight of hand. Does that mean that you believe that then true things like quote-unquote miracles can't happen just because they can be recreated?
I'm willing to be shown. I'm $1 million worth willing to be shown. That offer has been out there for the last 10 years now. It's going on 11 years, and if you wave a great carrot like that around, and it's so easily won if the phenomena are real, you have to wonder. It doesn't prove that the phenomena don't exist, but it sure as hell does prove that if these phenomena do exist, that nobody seems to be able to produce them. I mean, let's face it. Turnips and ball pens and microscopes and stuff. That's a claim, but you can produce that. Right. So if I offer you $1 million, if you can get a turnip for me, oh, there you go. Okay, here's the $1 million. It seems very simple that if something really exists, somebody should be able to come forward with it. But then, of course, we get all the nonsense about, I can't do it under pressure. They make a profession of it. They do it constantly for customers, for paying customers, and yet they can't do it under pressure. Get out of here.
I agree with you. Now, let me ask what your thoughts are on this aspect of weird phenomena. There's a gentleman that goes by the name Prophet Yahweh. Are you familiar with him?
Wait a minute. You called him a gentleman. I have no evidence of that at all. I think he's a nutcase myself.
Well, have you seen footage? I mean, he's been in front of actual news cameras where he starts his prayer and things appear out of the sky.
You can get news cameras to sit still and take photographs of a dead butterfly if you try hard enough. The fact that he has news cameras there, they go to photograph any nutcase because it makes news and people laugh at it and they laugh at Yahweh, too. Now, the solution to his mysteries is not all that hard to come by. First of all, he always works downwind and he always points in the direction of where a balloon would be coming from if someone had released it half a mile away, and there are balloons very easily available. And when you photograph what he produces, they look exactly like balloons. Now, that's a combination of factors that seems evidential to me because there's no evidence that they're UFOs.
Well, now, the one newscast that I've seen was actually done in Vegas. The news crew took him to an undisclosed location, didn't let him know where they were going to take him, so there would be no pre-arrangement of balloons or remote control flying craft, and they were able to produce it. The newscaster himself was kind of blown away. The reporter on the site was blown away by watching the silver ball come down and kind of go back up into the skies again. Now, what do you take of doing a situation like that? I mean, are you open? Is that something that would fall under the challenge? If you could take this guy to anywhere you choose and something like this were still to happen, would you consider that phenomena that you would accept as being out of our realm, or would you, how would that be?
That'd be fine. Sure, I'd accept that. No problem. I told him that long
ago.
Now,
would you need it to come down and
no.
high sign?
He has to tell me what he's going to do.
Okay.
First of all, I don't require that he do any specific thing. It doesn't have to spell a word out in the sky or advertise a product from the local 7-Eleven. It doesn't have to do any of those things. It depends on what he says it will do. But he won't make a claim because he's Yahweh, and Yahweh doesn't need to make claims. Well, if he wants the $1 million, yes, he has to.
All right, well, I understand that. Has there been anybody in the 20 years, what'd you say, 10, 11 years that you started the $1 million? Yeah. Has there been anybody that you've thought might have a legitimate shot at it with things that you had reviewed leading up to that, challenge?
No, because usually they're doing the same tired old thing. Most of them recently have been about orbs, which are photographed in graveyards.
Yeah,
they can also be photographed in a barn, If nobody's died in that barn in a while, where did they come from? Dead horses. I don't know.
Right.
And it's a phenomenon of digital cameras. It always uses a flash, and that's the way orbs are produced. And photographers are going crazy with orbs because they got to have a dust-free atmosphere in order to use digital photography with flash. It's an artifact of digital photography, but there's no spiritual value to them whatsoever, unless you consider a moth or something like that to be extraterrestrial.
Well, I totally agree with you. Orbs is one of my biggest bones of contention. Tim and I get hundreds of emails on a weekly basis of people wanting us to analyze their photographs, and I send it back saying it's dust, you're outside, everybody's wearing parkas, it's your breath, it's cigarette smoke, it's it's simple mistakes that are being made.
And raindrops and snowflakes and various other things do exactly the same thing.
Exactly. Now, with sleight of hand and being a magician and doing the things that you've done and seen, there was a belief for a long time that there were some quote-unquote magicians that were able to tap into strange places and get information that there was just no way to understand. Has there ever been somebody in the field of magic that's done something that even leaves the Amazing Randi scratching his head saying, wow, that I can't even begin to fathom how he could pull something like that off?
The field of magic, you mean the field of conjuring. You're not talking
right.
about doing real magic. You're talking about doing illusions. And
right.
Because that's the business that I'm in, frankly, and I don't make any claim that it's the real thing. I say that it's done for purposes of entertainment. And, painting is done, and tap dancing and various other things are done for purposes of entertainment, but you don't claim that they're paranormal. No, I've never been puzzled by any of these things. Now, occasionally, something has given me pause because I just can't figure it out at the moment. If I see it a second time, I say, oh, okay, because sometimes the crucial evidence escaped me. But the second time I see it, I know what to watch for. I know what the possibilities are, and it's always solvable. That's only because I've had vast experience in the field, and there's nothing new under the sun, as they say, and certainly in the field of conjuring, conjuring has not kept up with modern technology because there are all kinds of things. I saw things just a few weeks ago at the MIT Media Lab which would blow the average magician right out of the water. Some amazing things. They're all technologically explainable. They're perfectly ordinary, and the guys at MIT don't claim that they're paranormal or they can't be explained, of course, because they're scientists and graduate students who are dedicated to scientific thinking, and they'll easily explain to you how the things are done. But the point is that if you don't understand, well, Arthur C. Clarke said it Sir Arthur C. Clarke, now deceased, said it years ago, any sufficiently advanced technology is, to one unfamiliar with the technology, magic. And he's quite correct. If you don't know how a thing is done, and it is a result of technology, if you don't understand that at all, then it would appear to you to be apparently magic. And I mean magic, I mean the control of nature by supernatural means.
What is your take? Now, am I correct on this? I keep hearing different news reports on this. Is the $1 Million Challenge ending within the next year or two?
No, it's ending, shortly, within the next 2 years. It ends on March 6th, 2012.
Okay, 2012. So you're going to end it before the end of the world on December 21st, 2012.
Yes, I want to beat that because I wouldn't want to be unfair. You know.
Oh, I understand. Then you're going to just take that $1 million and live it up for the next 4 or 5 months, right?
I'm going to have a good time. Stand back, McDonald's.
Now, you've, people respected Houdini for doing what he did and debunking mediums and psychics and kind of going out and doing that. A lot of other people then turned it on to the fact that he had kind of run his course as a magician and wasn't offering anything new that anybody else couldn't reproduce, so he simply had to go to a different side of things to get notoriety and fame. How do you answer those reports, and has that happened to you as well? I mean, do you feel it's just you've kind of hit your wall with being able?
No, Houdini suffered greatly from the loss of his mother. He was a mama's boy. There's no question of it. Mm-hmm. He actually doted on his mother, who had sacrificed a great deal of her life to raise her kids, and he owed her. And when he was in Europe and she died, he felt that he had abandoned her, and he rushed back to America, and he went into a blue funk for quite a few years there. Now, the rumor started well after that he was going to the spiritualist to try to make contact with his mother. No, that's not the case at all. A lot of spiritualists came to him and said, we've contacted your mother, then brought him messages. The thing that struck him about that was that they were all in English, and his mother had never spoken a word of English in her life. But then they said, in heaven, everyone speaks English, of course. And I can't imagine any other venue in heaven, you'd have to speak English. Why would you speak a foreign tongue, But anyway, Houdini was infuriated by the fact that these people were pretending to bring back the spirit of his mother, and he determined to do something about it and look into them. And he already knew the methods that they used, because he and his wife Bess, back at the turn of the century, had been doing a mind-reading act, a sort of a spiritualist act, on various variety stages around the country, and very successful. They called it Fooling with the Spirits was the name of the act, and they pretended to be doing a spiritualism act. But they did it in good fun, and they never tried to tell anybody it was the real thing.
With that,
was not fooled by these people at all.
Do you feel confident that in what you do, in sleight of hand and understanding human nature, can you pull off pretty good cold readings yourself? Have you done that?
No, I cannot, unless I'm unknown. If the victim doesn't know who it is who's doing the cold reading, that's pretty hard to find because I'm rather well known. The point is that the victim, the sucker, the mark, as we say in the carnival trade,
sure,
has to believe that the person is genuine, or the person can't perform properly, because if they know from the beginning that it's trickery, they spot all the tricks. But when it's somebody like John Edward or Sylvia Brown, even though the tricks are very, very evident, they don't look for them. They believe that it's true, and they need to believe that it's true. They don't just want it to be true, they need it to be true. And they accept it, and in doing that, they make a grievous error.
What are the signals people can watch for to see when something, in your opinion, is faked?
First of all, they charge money. That's the first rule. If they don't charge money, then you may have the real thing. I've never found anyone that didn't charge money so far, except some amateurs who want some sort of a prestige in their local bridge club or something like that. And you get people doing this sort of thing. That doesn't usually last very long because they aren't very good at it. But it's pretty well, if it's successful or appears to be successful, in my estimation, you can look at it as a fake. That doesn't mean that you'll know how it's done, because you've got to study the art before you know how it's done. But some of these things are very, very evident. For example, now, why does John Edward get ghosts who whisper such vapid things to him? Now, I think that if the ghost of my deceased father-in-law were to come back and whisper to John Edward, my name is John, you see, then I might be impressed. But what he does, it seems, my name starts with J or B. What kind of a game is this? Is it 20 questions? Yes. It's the old game of 20 questions. You mess around until you come up with the right answer. You try to guess as best you can. And remember, the victim is always going to remember the hits, but never the misses. I had one example in England with a woman named Maureen Flynn was her name. She's a very famous medium, or was at that time. I don't know whether she is now, in England. And I wiped her out on my Granada TV program there. There was a fellow who sent me an audio tape of a reading she did for him, and he was so fascinated. He said, "Oh, this proves she's the real thing." Well, I transcribed the tape and made notes from it. It's an audio tape. Mm-hmm. And then Maureen Flynn and the gentleman appeared on my program, and I said to the gentleman, I said, "What impressed you about this so much?" And he said, "Well, she called out the name of my mother, and she couldn't possibly have known the name of my mother, but she hit it bang on like that." And he said, "That proved it to me." And I said, "Wait a minute, how many other names did she mention?" And he said, "Oh, no, only my mother's name." Well, then I went through my notes, and I came up with a sheet of paper, and I said, "Tell me if you recognize any of these names." And I read them off. I think it was 17 names that she had mentioned during the reading, and he kept shaking his head and smiling and saying, "No, no, 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 no." And I said, "But they're all on the transcript right here, and here is a copy of the transcript." And I handed it to him. He threw it on the floor, and he said, "I don't need to read the transcript. I know what she told me." Well, he didn't, because she had given out all of these names, and none of them were Doris, which was his mother's name, because he said to her, when she said to him, there's a rather matronly-looking lady standing right behind you, and she has gray hair. Could that be your mother? And he says, "Yes, my mother, Doris." He gave her the name, and yet his memory of the thing was that she gave it to him, and Doris did not appear in that transcript or in the recording anywhere. And all those other names, he had forgotten that she guessed at because they weren't the right names. They only remember the things that hit. They never remember the failures.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, you made a comment that, one of the first clues is if they charge. Why would charging for a gift that you've been given of divination or communication, why would you consider that to be a sign of a fraud or a charlatan? I mean, wouldn't it be just like...
It'd be something to look for. I mean, to look out for. I would get the hairs on the back of my neck up the moment they did that. It doesn't prove anything, of course. It's the performance that proves it one way or the other.
Right, but my point being is, Barbara Streisand is born with the gift of a beautiful singing voice. Should she not charge for people to come hear her sing?
Absolutely. No. But it does get your attention. I mean, that's something that rings a little bell in the back of my head. It's one of the many little rings. I get a ringing that's so loud I can hardly hear myself think as these people go on. No, but it's an indication. It's a kind of an indication which would tell me to be more alert as soon as I hear that.
Okay. And do you have a stance, or I'm curious what your thoughts are on the fact that law enforcement seems to be using more and more people that claim to be sensitive on cases to try to, glean an extra bit of information, and they seem to get pretty good hits by some of these people.
I'm glad that you said they seem to be.
Right.
Because I've talked to endless law enforcement people, including Scotland Yard in London, and they said, no, we never use psychics. But what does happen, you see, is that the psychics will go around to the police department and they say, that little boy that went missing there last Friday, I know something about that. They have to sit the person down. So the person sits down with a tape recording and says, I get the color red connected with this, and a double letter of some kind, like a double R or a double L maybe, I'm not sure, and I smell water. There's something like water and salt. Salt is connected with, and electricity. I'm getting electricity as well. And I get something like a car, like a small car of a light color. I can't make out, and they go on and on and on like this for 90 minutes in some cases. And then later on, if it turns out that the fellow's family has a double letter in its name, they say, see? And of course the police will tend to look at that and say, yeah, that's significant. They forget about the misses. That's the big thing that the so-called psychics have got going for them. Anytime they miss, they forget that. They just brush it aside, and they look for the hits. And that's exactly the way these people get successes. But in most cases, the vast majority of cases, the police don't go to psychics. The psychics go to the police. And if they do, the police have to sit down and listen to what they say, because they might really know something.
Are you, I know, or at least it's reported that like Houdini was actively out there trying to pursue to debunk people. I know that you're not out there doing that. You're allowing people to come to you to debunk themselves.
We do not debunk. That's because to debunk something would mean that we already have made up our minds it's not true. I'm going to show you that it's not true. We don't debunk, we investigate. And if it's true, the people can get $1 million. It's there. And of course the rumor is out there that, there never was any $1 million. No, he's just lying about that. Well, we offer them to send us a fax or send us an email or a written letter or whatever, and we'll send you a copy of the statement from Goldman Sachs. The James Randi Educational Foundation prize account is at least $1 million. It's about 1.4 or something at the moment. But it's there, and we can prove it and give you the account number and the whole business. But no one, now I repeat, no one has ever asked to see that evidence. But they do go out and tell the story that there's no $1 million. We've never sent out a copy of that statement from Goldman Sachs. We have printed copies, and we discard them every month, and we put in the latest monthly statement. Or is it sent to us every 2 months? I've forgotten now. But we get the account with the total on it, and it's got the account number and the date on everything. No one has ever asked for one of those sheets of paper, ever. Isn't that strange?
How many people on a yearly basis actually follow through and take the challenge?
Anywhere from 300 to 400. It's highly variable.
You mean 300 to 400, or anywhere from just 3 people to 400 people? Okay.
It's highly variable. We may go months without one application, and then if an article comes up in Lithuania, as it did a couple of years ago, an article comes up from local press, and they haven't heard about it, we get as many as 40 or 50 in a day. They just pour in, and visitors actually come from Lithuania, if you can believe that, to the front door to be tested. But then we go for months without anything happening, without anybody making any application. But if it hits the news, especially in a minor country somewhere around the world, the Lithuanians are all going to write me letters now.
Don't worry, we don't have a big contingency of listeners in Lithuania.
There you go. Really, I'm surprised. But it's a case of how much publicity it gets at the moment, or if it makes some news on television. in which case we get a raft of them. They just pour in.
What are the mainstays of the challenges? Are they all psychic abilities or the ability to bend spoons with their minds? I mean,
the vast majority of them, a good 80% of them, are for dowsing. That is, finding water or lost children or gold or whatever you want with a dowsing stick, a bent piece of willow or hazel, or a coat hanger rods or a pendulum or whatever. It's the ideomotor reaction. It's a simple psychological delusion that people have, that they think they can find this sort of thing with dowsing rods. And the dowsers are by far the greatest claimants. The American Society of Dowsing, you might be interested to know, has a specific note in their articles of incorporation where they say, do not respond to any offer from James Randi, because they don't want to be tested. They have a delusion going for them. They enjoy it, and it's something they think they can do, and they don't want to find out whether they can really do it or not.
How can you explain to us, what is the challenge then? If these people come to you, what do you make them do to prove that they have the ability to?
We don't make them do anything. They have to tell us in advance what they can do, under what circumstances, with what accuracy, and then we test them for that claim. They have to make the claim. I don't say there's no such thing as dowsing or telepathy or any of these things. I simply say, you say there is, do it.
Okay, and that's my question. Do you just take them out to some undisclosed area and they have to show you where the water is or where the gold piece is? Do you bury a gold piece somewhere? I mean, how does it...
No, they have to say what the test will be. They have to outline the quality of the thing. Can they find gold? Can they find water? Under what circumstances? With what accuracy? They have to give us all the parameters of the thing, and they should know what they can do. You know, if I say I can play the violin, I can tell you under what circumstances. Underwater, standing on my head, whatever. I should be able to tell you under what circumstances and what pieces I can play. So we just leave it to them. They have to design the test, and in the vast majority of cases, we don't do the test. We turn them over to some academic group that they agree will be fair and proper in their encounter with the so-called psychic, and we don't do it at all because they say, oh, James Randi is a trickster. He'll fool me. Well, I'm sorry, I won't go anywhere near it then. And most of these things are done in other countries.
Have you ever been out to places that are reported to be haunted, where apparitions are being seen on a regular basis?
I slept in 2 haunted houses, one in New England and one up in Canada, and it was a little uncomfortable because it was drafty, but I slept all right, and no weird things happened to me.
And is that something, how do you deal with that on reports of hauntings? Do you have people that go out in those areas under your name?
They have to say what they can do. What will be proof of their claim? I don't make the rules. They have to make the rules. If they say they can produce disembodied spirits or messages from disembodied spirits or recordings that can't be accounted for by other simple means, do it. You know, Lou Gentile, for example, was making all these claims very loudly over a period of months and months, and he got louder and louder and more obstreperous, and then suddenly vanished, of course, as we know. But these people go out to do these ghost hunting things, as Lou did, I'm sure. And, well, I may never find out, I don't know. But they go out with instruments that are far overtuned, and since the atmosphere around us, the electromagnetic spectrum, I should say, is filled with cell phones, taxi calls, police calls, fire engines, emergency things, burglar alarms, all kinds of signals are ringing through the electromagnetic spectrum all the time. They tune them up far too high, so they're overly sensitive, and anything that happens within a mile or two registers on there, and if it's a weird sound, they say, how do you explain that?
Right, but I've been in front of a large group of people while we're doing EVP work at some of these locations. You know, I'm one of the charlatans that take people out to haunted locations to see if we can find anything, and whereas I do bill it as entertainment purposes only as well, just to go out and have fun and try to see if there is something going on there. I've seen things that, you know, I mean, we get direct response to answers at certain locations to questions. That to me, I love EVPs, unlike you, I'm sure, but I'm a skeptic in the sense that I do understand there's a lot of signals, and more every day with satellites, microwave technology, cell phones, radio, CBs, all these different things that we're picking up on it. But when I've actually been able to hear a direct response that's not just a yes, no, or a number, which are the most commonly heard things on radio waves, when we get a direct hit to a question that we get, you know, I mean, that to me is kind of an astounding point. Now, I will admit that when you do get things like that, it's very few and far between that they come through that clear that you can actually understand it, and it's not a form of matrixing, which is your brain. I'm saying this, of course, for the listeners, not for you, but it's your brain trying to rationalize or make sense of random or archaic noise.
Which is pattern recognition is very important for our survival and for our information, of course.
With that, though, has there ever been somebody that's been able to produce a voice that seems to answer at least one of 10 questions for you?
I hear these things all the time. I'm getting reports of them all the time, but they never come around to produce it. I'm willing to be shown, but I'm sitting here waiting. I'm waiting.
Well, do they have to come to your location, or would you go to the haunted location where they claim to get
what
this?
They require. If they require that I go there, I go there. If they don't require that I go there and somebody else does it, then they do it. It all depends on what they're claiming. They have to give us the parameters of the thing.
Okay, well, that's great to know. See, that's something that, because I do have some people, I think there's a lot of misinterpretation and a lot of preconceived notion of what actually goes on with the trips, or not with the trips, rather, but with your challenge. Mm-hmm. I know all I've heard is that it's, under whatever parameters Randy sets, and if you don't follow this and that.
From people who don't read the challenge. They don't read the challenge. They make up their own rules. It's like the ones who say, I've looked and I can't find $1 million. It doesn't really exist. It does exist, but they don't ask for the evidence, as I said a moment ago there. We've never had one person ever actually ask to get a copy of the document. Not one, ever. In all the years that it's been around, and we've had as I say, I've got a drawer in the other room here that has the most recent statement from Goldman Sachs accounting for the $1 million and where it is and what it is and how much it amounts to and such, and I print them up every month. As soon as Linda gets the latest statement, I tear the other ones up, throw them away, and I put the new ones in the box there. I make 10 or 20 copies of it, put them in the box. I'm not going to keep on making 20 copies of it. That's ridiculous. I'll maybe make one copy of it and stick it in there in case anybody wants it.
Well, how do I get a copy? I'd like to have a copy for myself, so that way I've got it to say I'm the first to actually ask for a copy.
That's a good idea. Okay.
And I can read it to the people that call in or email me and say you're a fake.
All you do is you give me a fax or a mailing address, whatever you want. I'll send it to you by fax. I'll send it to you by mail, whatever you want, and I will send you a copy.
All right, I will do that. And you know what? I've got a couple of people that I feel I'm secure in some of their abilities that they're able to produce EVPs and some of these things. I'd like to see about doing that and perhaps even being witness there as it occurs. I don't know. How do you, when you set the parameters, I know you don't, but I mean, when they set the parameters, are they allowed to have certain people there with them?
They can have any number of people. They can have a dog and pony show. I don't care. As long as it doesn't interfere with the demonstration.
Okay.
I just want something that's intact and legitimate. If we have somebody there with a secret transmitter in their eyeglasses or something like that, I'm going to make a fuss. I'll tell you that.
Oh, no doubt.
But we have the means to test for that sort of thing, and we have, and we've never detected anything because people who come to us don't try tricks. They're just self-deluded. They think they've got this going, and they really don't have anything.
I know when we were talking about Lou Gentile's challenge, and basically what it had come down to for EVPs was that you would create, 100 envelopes with commonly used words in them, and just it was basically holding up the envelope and asking the spirit to say whatever the word was on that card in the envelope.
Well, it's better than that, though, you see. If we did it with, say, a dozen envelopes, and what I would do is I would give the people who do the experiment the list of the 12 words that are in the 12 envelopes. And I would say, it's one of those. Have the spirit indicate which one of those, because if I just said any word in the English language, that would be hundreds of thousands of possibilities.
Definitely.
In this case, the chances would be 1 in 12, or whatever number of envelopes that we would use. And we would know mathematically what the chances are. And the spirit certainly should be able to tell us which one of 12 words or 15 words or whatever is in an envelope.
And would it be just a one in and out shot, or do you give them three different sets of controls?
It would have to be statistically significant, that's all. It depends on what they claim it would be. You see, again, it depends on the claim. If they say it's 100% correct, hey, we don't have any problem. If they say we can get twice the odds that we normally would, well, we would use more than 12 objects in that case. It all depends on the claim that they make. We designed the test to go along with the parameters that are needed. They have to beat 1 in 1,000 odds on the preliminary test, and they have to beat heavier odds on that on the formal test. But we've never decided that because no one has ever passed the formal test.
All right, fair enough. Let me ask you, I know your stand on Uri Geller is pretty tight. You're not a big fan of the gentleman. And again, there I go using the word gentleman, right? And
yes.
Have to be careful with that. Why? What exactly is it that is just your disdain with this gentleman? Why Because he just claims that he has these amazing abilities to do things, and you know it to be not true. Is that what just kind of gets under your skin? Or is it that people buy into what he says so readily?
He has cost a lot of people their careers. He's cost a lot of people their security, their emotional security. He's betrayed a lot of scientists all around the world. And if he were ever to admit now that it had been all just a little joke that he was playing on the public, he would be sued left and right by even governments who have spent millions upon millions of dollars to study the Geller effect because they chose, through some rather unwise scientific effort and authorities, they chose to believe that he was telling them the truth. And they spent millions to investigate the effect and found nothing. So he could be sued by these people who had relied upon his truthfulness. And I think that's not going to happen. Now he wants to be known, I suppose you know, he wants to be known as a mystifier, but not a psychic. He won't accept that terminology. Now, that to me is a very sure sign that he's trying to withdraw from this. He's not going to get out of this, though, because if he ever went to the press and said, hey, it was all a joke and I fooled everybody for all these years, then he would have the force of the law descend on him, because I think these people would bring civil cases against him immediately. He cost a lot of people their reputations and their careers, a lot of them, and a lot of organizations, schools and different commercial businesses and such, cost them millions of dollars.
What is your take on somebody like the Amazing Kreskin?
He's an entertainer. He's using the same methods that all mentalists have done over the years. It's not a mystery to the magicians. That's right straight out of the book.
Well, give us, too, for the listeners that are out there and are not real familiar with the terminology, you know, I mean, with all the different terms that are being thrown around, there's psychics, mystifiers, mentalist. What does a mentalist do? That
a mentalist, by definition in the trade, is a magician who appears to be doing what he does by using the mind rather than using magic tricks. He appears to. But what he's doing is standard magic tricks that have been in the books for, in some cases, for centuries. Actually, since the 1600s, they've written up tricks that can be done, that appear to be done with the mind. And that's what mentalists have been used. And they have not really moved up the scale at all. I don't see many mentalists. There are some, but not many mentalists who are actually using the advantages of technology. As I said earlier, MIT Media Lab has all kinds of stuff there that mentalists could use, but they're not about to part with them to the public, of course, and certainly not to a mentalist. But they could be used to produce effects that would blow the average magician's mind right out of the water. It's incredible. They have sensing technologies there, electronic means, that are just almost unbelievable, but not quite.
Well, I'm curious with doing things. I mean, what's blown me away is watching Kreskin when he one of his deals that he does for people is you hire him to come there,
and he hides the.
You hide the check, and if he can't find the check, you don't pay him, and if he can, you find it. What are they reading that they're getting that kind of deal from?
That technique is known as Hellstromism. A fellow named Alexander Hellstrom developed it in the 1800s. He was famous for doing that. He would find objects in public buildings. For example, someone would go into a library and conceal a book someplace in the library, and he'd have to go around the library until he found it. It's a method of reading body reactions. There's a fellow named I can't think of Ellie Schneider. I think Ellie Schneider. He came from Israel some years ago. I don't even know if Ellie is still with us, but he gave a demonstration at the Magic Castle in Hollywood years ago that I witnessed, and we could see what the gimmick was, how he was doing it, but it was astonishing, really. He was very, very sensitive to people's unconscious, involuntary movements. After they hid the object in the room, after he was out of the room, when he came back into the room, he was able to pick up from the person who had hidden the object certain subtle physical signals that led him in the right direction. And he was astonishingly accurate. He did wonderful things. And he leveled with us, of course. When we asked him questions about the technique, he told us.
Do you feel, when you're meeting with people, do you have, because of the work that you've done and because of understanding mentalism and understanding people's reactions, do you have kind of an unfair advantage? Are you able to read when people are just out and out BSing you on certain things? Are you able to pick up on that? Not just, hey, I'm smart and I know better than this.
No, my BS detector is very finely tuned.
It is?
Yes. React to the tiniest signal.
And do you attribute that to just because you understand
experience and body reactions and such too, by attitudes. I see what they avoid and what they embrace and how they're trying to misdirect the attention and whatnot. It's pretty transparent. When you've been, of course, hey, I'm in my 80th year, and I started this when I was about 12 years of age, so I'll let you do the subtraction.
How easy are people to fool?
Well, very easy. It depends on their attitudes. If they're woo-woo people who believe in these things, particularly if they're religious, because to believe in religion means you don't have any evidence to support what you're believing in. You just decided that you'd prefer to believe this. And if you're that kind of person, then you will prefer to believe this sort of thing, too, because one miracle is as good as another.
You know, I found interesting, too, is when you mentioned the fact that, the gentleman that went to see the psychic and, she said the name Doris, and the psychic had never actually said the name.
And he had the recording. Remember, he's the one who gave me the recording.
Right.
So he knows from studying the recording that she never said the word Doris, that he did. But he doesn't want to know that, you see.
Right, he wants the connection and the belief in the paranormal to be there.
He needs it to be paranormal, that's right.
Right, he wants to, there's that want and belief. I'm curious, now there are, I've watched some mediums that I've seen do readings, and the issue I've always taken with people out there, the as I call them, the witchcraft people are Randy, I'm picking up on this, and you're really depressed. And what I need is, as a commitment to show that you want this change and you want this off, is I need $200. I'm going to burn it with a special candle that will release the good energies and free you of this. And the $200 doesn't stay with you.
Pardon me, I was yawning.
Exactly. That's what it gets into. Now, I've seen, though, mediums that will do readings, they pick the heavy-set girl with the greasy hair who can't make direct eye contact and stares at the floor, and they can gather, well, you've got a grandparent that's passed over, it's a grandfather, he loves you, and he says, you're being so hard on yourself, you're so beautiful inside you, and I watch them cry, and they feel better, and all of a sudden their heads are up and their eyes are making contact. I've seen people utilize that form of reading to help people, where therapists and psychologists have been working on this person's ego and id for years, taking $150 every session, and they're not doing any help that this person did in one session with the dead grandpa telling the story.
So you lie to people and you make them feel better. That's the technique. That's the process.
Right. Now, do you find a problem with that, of people utilizing it in that form to help people with the grieving process, to let go? Do you see that as a form of in a sense, entertainment or therapy for people as well?
No, it's a swindle. Because if they believe that, they're going to go back. They're going to go back to some other charlatan out there who will really take their money and lead them astray and destroy them emotionally. A lie is a lie is a lie. It's never the truth. And if you use a lie to accomplish something that temporarily is going to make someone feel better, it's like being cured of a disease. They say, I felt much better after it. But were you healed? Do you want to feel better, or do you want to be free of the disease? That's the question. You've got to answer that for yourself.
So those type of people even bother you with what they're out doing?
Yes, because that's exactly what happens with these people. There's a thin edge of the wedge. They get encouraged by that sort of thing, and then from then on, they're woo-woo advocates. They're going for it. They need it. They pursue it, and they'll spend any amount of money or time on the thing, but they won't do anything to improve themselves and actually get better from this situation or recover from it. No, they'll go for people that tell them things they like to hear. That's very dishonest, and it's cruel.
That's the thin part of the razor that I have a hard time justifying as well, because I do see people that do that type of work and I think are doing nothing more than just a cold read. But I've also seen a lot of the people that get help from it, and they haven't gone back for readings. They just needed the goodbye and the hug, psychic hug or whatever it was.
Might very well be. That has not been my experience, but it may be yours.
Right. Well, addiction, again, people are easily addicted by the different realms, and I could see that being a problem. I mean, we've talked to people that are mediums or claim to be psychic on our shows in the past and asked them, do you get people that are addicted to you? And they say, yeah, and that they try to dissuade people from, repeat visits. They do it a couple times, and then they say, really, you shouldn't lean on me for all of this. You should really try to live your life and experience things.
Okay, that shows a certain amount of integrity there, I would say, then.
Well, great. Yeah, and that's you see, that's where I'm having trouble. I've seen some things, and I've heard things that I can't wrap my head around. There's an amazing couple out of California, Michael and Marty Perry, that are a medium couple. The husband works like John Edward, doing the readings and connecting you. The wife draws the spirits she sees around you or in the room. And doing an interview with them for a show that was aired, they we're doing a reading for another lady in our audience, but as the Marty that was drawing the photos, she drew a picture dead on of my grandfather. There's no posted pictures of my grandfather. I don't look like a young version of my grandfather, which was my skepticism at first, was looking at it and thinking, if you look at enough people in the audience and draw a picture of them old, you're going to hit somebody that looks pretty much like their grandparents.
Yeah, sure.
This grandfather looked nothing like me. A couple of the other pictures she drew looked nothing like the person that claimed that was a relative. And they're able actually to show photographs of the relatives that look spot on to the person that Marty has drawn. That to me is an astounding fact. I had a reading with them just to see how things were going, and some of the stuff, I understand body language and giving away certain things, but when they're able to go into parts that nobody can research on me, nobody can know, and they know these things that I'm not giving away at, which I have reviewed the tapes, and I can see where there's been times I've led some mediums into a point where I'm giving them too much information, and then there's times where I don't say a word other than, okay.
Well, with that picture gag, we did a thing in the UK, many years ago, I've forgotten how long ago, quite some time ago, when there was somebody out there whose name I can't think of now. It was a woman who did these sketches in front of audiences, and we had her make a sketch for our audience. She was backstage doing the sketch, and then we asked the people in the audience to whom did it apply. Pardon me. And about, maybe a quarter, I've forgotten the figures now, I could look them up for you, about a quarter of the people held up their hands, and then they all looked at one another and laughed because they realized that there were so many there that it would be hard to find somebody that didn't agree with the drawing that she made of this elderly gentleman with a small beard. Of course, in England, beards are much more common than they are here, but particularly on an older generation. And so what we were doing is we were forcing her to do it for somebody that she didn't know was actually pointed out. We had it for a certain person in the audience, and that person was one of the ones who held up their hand saying that it agreed with their deceased relative, but a lot of other hands went up as well. And as I say, they looked at one another, looked around the audience, and they laughed and drew their hands down again because they realized that what the gimmick was. It would apply to anybody. But when they specify, not to anybody, but to a lot of people, but when they specify a specific person in the audience, you'll often get people turning to one another and saying, that could be my grandfather. It's astonishing.
Right. Well, that's what's, and I was waiting for that too, because we've watched Michael and Marty do large group sessions, and I thought that same thing. You know what, this person looks like it could be, and then they draw the picture, but only one person in the audience lays claim to the photograph. Mm-hmm. Which, to me, that's just been really strange to see something like that. And I try, my quest is to get the answers, to understand these things. I don't buy into everything that I see out there. I don't buy into this, even though I've had experiences in my life I can't explain. And I've seen things that I don't know how to wrap my head around. That to me, seeing things like that, I'm looking for answers, and that's why I think there's a need for James Randis and Chris Angels that are willing to expose some of these flaws so that we can try to get more to the answers.
Well, remember what you just said there. You said that one person held up the hand, but remember, when that one person holds up a hand, nobody else will hold up a hand at that point because I guess he's got a better claim to it than I have. There may be other people there. If you ask the question, how many people here, if you haven't got all believers in the audience, in most cases when these audiences are assembled, they're all believers, and they wouldn't dare raise their hand if they saw one person raise their hand. They keep their hand down and then tell people afterwards, perhaps, it's also applying to me, very close to my grandfather. So when you see the one hand go up, you don't hold your hand up in an audience like that. Remember that.
I understand that. Tim, you have a question?
Well, Mr. Randi, it's actually a two-part question. One, you've mentioned now that a couple of times about people having to be a believer or be particularly religious in order to believe in some of this stuff.
No. I said that in connection with me doing a reading.
Okay.
They'd have to believe that I had the power, or they're not going to go for it.
Okay. Are you yourself particularly religious? And you don't have to answer that if you're not comfortable with it.
I've always answered that. I am not religious at all. I don't have any superstitions of any kind. I walk under ladders. I do all kinds of dangerous things. I go out and have parties on the 13th of the month. If you can imagine how daring that is. But for a lot of people, this is very daring.
Right.
You don't know how many times people will say, oh, no, that's the 13th. No, let's make it the following week. And I've had this happen all the time. And I just sigh in desperation because they actually take this sort of thing seriously.
And I guess the second part of this question is much like a police officer who might get a little jaded by humanity once they've seen so many terrible acts. You've been in the business since you were young.
Is it possible or entirely possible that maybe you've become jaded to possibilities throughout the years of possible paranormal activity, or do you still keep a somewhat open mind?
Oh, I have an open mind, but I don't hold it open so far that my brains fall out. I mean, really, you can have far too open a mind where you're going to accept everything that comes along, and there are a lot of woo-woos out there who do accept everything as being absolutely genuine. I'm willing to be shown. Remember, that's $1 million carrot that I'm waving on the end of the stick. If you can do it, come and get the carrot. Now, the fact that they don't come and get the carrot, or they don't even try to get the carrot, doesn't prove anything to the contrary. That doesn't mean they can't do it or that it doesn't exist. I never say that it can't be done or that it doesn't exist. I simply say, if it does, come and get the $1 million.
Let me go back to one thing real quickly when we were talking about UFOs. There's a location that I've been to in Trout Lake, Washington. I went out there over a year and a half ago, and I had an experience and saw something in the sky that, 2 years later I can't wrap my head around. And it wasn't a weather balloon. It wasn't a kite. It wasn't I saw something move, some kind of creature move between a set of trees up at the top as though it was gliding or flying through the sky. I ran towards it with my lights, looking for screens, laser projector, anything that could have been causing this. There was nothing there to be found. I don't want to believe what I saw because it was so weird. Now,
you'll have no explanation for this, right?
None.
Okay. Does that mean that it doesn't have an explanation? Because you said earlier that you saw things that you can't explain, but that is, I think it's an incorrect statement, that you can't explain at the moment. Now, I could show you a card trick, for example, and show it to you many times over until suddenly you said, aha, and you solved the thing. But if you said from the beginning, this card trick can't be explained, that would have been incorrect then, wouldn't it? If you get more information about a situation, you often do have an explanation. So never say, this is something that can't be explained. You can often say, I can't explain it, but you should also add, presently, at this moment, I can't explain it, because an explanation may occur to you.
Well, and I agree with that. But if people were going to have you out for a challenge, for a UFO challenge, to see something like this, to bring you to a location like this, what would it take for James Randi to say, oh, that's crazy? How would you know that it isn't some kind of government flight path for some testing?
I wouldn't know.
Craft. Right, but what would be the parameter for you if they just said there are things flying over our property, $1 million challenge or not, I'd like you to come see this. Would you pay $1 million to go to a site where they supposedly see UFO activity without having any way to prove that that's an alien craft and maybe not some form of government?
Absolutely. All they have to do is prove that there's no other explanation for it. You see, they don't think of that approach. There are all kinds of things I see in the sky that I can't explain at the moment. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't eventually be able to explain, or if I put a telescope on it or an infrared camera, I might see exactly what it is. But at the moment, there are many things that I can't have an explanation for immediately. That doesn't mean there isn't an explanation. So if they were to produce something like that, something to reappear in the sky, I'd simply say, that is something I don't understand. Can you establish that there is no explanation for it, an ordinary explanation that is not paranormal or extraterrestrial? And of course they can't. But they tend to assume that it is.
Okay, so UFOs are probably the least likely of an item that somebody could have you come investigate that would ever be paid out, because, as you said, at this point, we have no way of discerning. Is it a governmental flight plane that we're just not privy to? Is it an optical illusion of a reflection off of this or that or the other to create these type of things?
Yes, and by the same token, they should not assume that it is something that doesn't have a ready explanation, because they can't show that it doesn't have a ready explanation.
We've only got a few minutes left here. I appreciate the time you've given us tonight. Let me ask you, do you believe, or would you honestly, the Amazing Randi, would you really like proof for yourself of something out there, of an afterlife or an afterworld or a UFO?
I don't care. I don't have a motive. All I want to know is what's true. That's all. Bottom line, I want to know what the facts are. I don't care whether it's true or not. If it's true, that would be a wonderful revelation to me. I would celebrate the fact. But I would have found out something that I didn't know before. And any time I discover something like that, something that my cat can do that I didn't know she could do, that's wonderful. I say, oh, wow, I didn't know my cat could do that. I didn't know that any cat could do that. It's a discovery, and it's a moment of titillation, and I enjoy it. A discovery about a new fact is always very exciting. And if it were something like a UFO or a psychic power of some kind, I would say, wow. Now it would cost me $1 million. That's true. Not cost me $1 million. It would cost the foundation $1 million. It's not my million, you understand. But the point is, anything like that you discover that's new is a bit of knowledge that makes you a better person, a more knowledgeable person. And I think that's important.
I agree. Can you tell us what the future of your foundation, and for people that want more information on your foundation, what is the website that it can go to?
Funny you should ask. www.randi.org. And Randi is spelled R-A-N-D-I.
Right, Randi.org, and there you have updates and stories and things that's going on.
And it's completely archived, and all you have to do is go to the box in the upper right-hand corner there. Any subject you'd like to know about, enter it in there and ask for it. There are 2 selections there, on the web and on the Randi site. And go to the Randi site, and everything that I've ever mentioned about that will be available to you immediately. There may be hundreds of entries under each one.
Go ahead, Tim. You have the last question here for him?
Yeah, Mr. Randi, I'm just curious. When it's time for you to sort of lay down your sword, so to speak, on this entire thing, who do you see as your successor?
That's a good question. We've been talking just in the last few days in Las Vegas at our conference. We were talking to a few people who are headed for that position, and we don't know if it's going to be an individual or a board. We haven't quite decided yet. I have a rare combination of talents, of course, and we have to be able to meet that.
Would you look at another magician such as like Penn Jillette or maybe Chris Angel or somebody like that, somebody who might know the ins and outs of certain amounts of trickery?
I certainly would consider that, but of course these are very busy professional people, and maybe they haven't got the time that I have. I could have gotten to their status as a magician a long time ago if I had decided to go that way, but frankly I'm very, very happy with the way things are right now.
Do you have any upcoming viewings where people can come see you, meet with you, hear what you have to say about this?
Well, we have a timetable on our website, and people can refer to that. It usually announces my upcoming lectures. In many cases, these lectures are not available to the public, unfortunately, but you can look in on there on the current events section and see what's happening.
All right. Do you know, just off the top of your head, I had heard rumors that you're going to be at Dragon Con this year.
Yeah, I'll be at Dragon Con. I've never done that. It's going to be interesting at the end of August, yeah.
Great. Well, we'll definitely see you there then. I'm going to be out at Dragon Con as well. So to be,
you'll look like a dragon, will you?
Great. Oh yeah, I might. I'll be out there. I'd like to shake your hand, say hi to you, and get an opportunity to just meet after the last couple of years of having you on. I appreciate your graciousness and the time that you've spent with us this evening, sir, and continued success with all that you do. And again, I'm hoping I can throw a couple of these people that I have been astounded by towards you to see if they're willing to take the challenge and actually step up and move forward on this, because I think there are a few things out there that I would love answers for, and I would just love to see them do it.
Don't be surprised if they don't take you up on it.
I'm not anymore after Lou Gentile debacle.
I was just going to say, remember the name Gentile. Keep that in front of you.
That I've got it emblazoned in my brain. I trust I won't forget that debacle again. But I want to thank you because you were great on that show. And again, people, go back, review. I think it was May of 2006. Listen to the show. Randy was fantastic. He came on very professional, explained what would have to be done, how it would be done, and then Lou Gentile came on for the second half an hour and acted like a complete ninny, backpedaling the whole time. And I got to laugh too, Mr. Randi. I'll tell you, the next night on his radio show, he was on just lambasting me for who did I think I was to question him and this, that, and the other. And I showed up in his chat room during the show, and he flipped into a complete ass kiss and started, oh, well, Dave did his job the way he had to. He had to ask the tough questions. And I even got on the air with him and said, geez, I'm surprised by this because, here you've been barking at Randy for so long that you wanted this, and he finally agrees to do it. Now you're going to make him wait. That just seems so strange. I lost complete respect for the gentleman watching that happen. So I've got to guess that's just got to be part of the fun for you doing what you do, is watching these people just fold like a house of cards.
Well, it certainly is. And Dave and Tim, I want to thank you very much for the call.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Thank you all for tuning into the Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio Show. We're going to be back.
So there you have it. A couple hours of a sit down with James Randi, including the back and forth with Lou Gentile having to do with their $1 Million Paranormal Challenge. In the years afterwards, Lou Gentile did pass away, having to do with some complications, not only from that fall that he had, but he eventually, I believe, had heart disease, something to that effect. But Lou did eventually pass away. James Randi retired. And then DJ Grosey took over the James Randi Education Foundation. The $1 Million Paranormal Challenge eventually folded up. It was retired because nobody claimed the money. Essentially, nobody came forward and passed all the challenges that they needed to, or passed all the tests they needed to prove that the paranormal was scientifically provable. So it was folded up just a couple of years ago, and that was that. That was it for the $1 Million Paranormal Challenge. And there you have it. Do you think you had what it took to prove that the $1 Million Paranormal Challenge was real? Well, you never know. Maybe somebody will come forward someday and put that kind of bank up to prove it was real. James Randi is still quite in the money, though. If you look up his net worth on the internet, it claims that Mr. Randi is worth $1.5 million. So there you go. That's it for another edition of Beyond the Darkness. Join us again tomorrow for more of the strange and supernatural right here on the best in paranormal talk radio, Beyond the Darkness.